Okay, we have activated some of the plugins already, but I'm gonna go back here to the plugins, type water, and make sure that you have this activated. We do have water advance and water extras. We don't need this, to be honest. The only one that we need is water. So if you don't have it, you need to enable it and restart. With that said, the way that we're gonna use this is the following way. Go to your Edge assets, type water, and then you can see different types of water objects that you can create. The one that we're looking for is the river. I'm going to use the river to kind of explain how to control some of the settings with it, but that's going to be the same for every other water body. So just drag the river to your scene, drop somewhere, and it's just like that, a river is going to show up. So the way that this works, the beginning of the curve is the direction of the river is flowing, and you can see that this object I'm moving around, it deforms the landscape underneath it. So if I keep moving this closer and closer to my Sigis, this Sigis is going to carve a place in it. So what I'm going to do is actually find where I want this river to start, somewhere here maybe. Move it a little bit down, to be honest. Can even move a little bit out. And just like the other tools, is a Bezier curve. So I can just go here, Alt click and drag, put another one to the side here, and I can move this around. Alt click and drag, Alt click and drag, and oops, select the last one, Alt click and drag. Okay. If I get close to it, you can kind of see the scale of this. So there's a few things about this river that are interesting. One, the curve is very, very precise. And I'm going to show to you how to use effects to essentially add some variation. But also, because I'm painting this on top of the grass that is playing by slope, there's a bunch of grass underneath it. So we're going to have to create a mask in the landscape material in order to paint out this detail. I'm happy with this. I think it looks cool. The color of the water is nice, but let's say they want to make some variations to this. The first thing I'm going to do, if I'm happy with the shape of this river, is I'm going to get some of these blockers and trace them around the river so it blocks the procedural foliage from being generated inside the river. So I'm going to go to the top here, add this button and type foliage, and look for blocking volume. I'm just going to drag that to the scene right there. And for me, for this, it's very straightforward. I'm just going to build something that takes a lot of the space, a little bit of the edge too. I don't want to have trees right on the edge. So at least if it's this chunky enough, I should be able to trace around it. So I can just do this, rotate, and start stacking some of those volumes. And that's the fastest, dirtiest way of doing it. There's some other ways that you can mask it out. I want to just show to you the tools so you can start prototyping, and then you can deep dive into the visual 2 seconds on your own. So just put like that. Sometimes what I do when I have a corner, I just put a cylinder as a corner, but in this case here, I'm just being lazy, just put a bunch of these boxes. Because that's gonna work perfectly for what we need. And do this. Let's see, I'm moving my camera around. I moved too much, I'm sorry if that's a little bit disorienting. There you go. Perfection. So that done, I'm actually gonna organize my outliner here. So I'm gonna select all the procedural stuff, make a new folder. I'm gonna call this 0203 actually. Foliage. Make sure that the blockers is in its own folder inside. I'm gonna select the instant foliage geometry, put it there too. The landscape information and the water stuff, I'm gonna put it in its own folder. 02 landscape. And with that done, I can just go to my foliage, click on this, and resimulate. So now if I press G, you have our, well, I guess we forgot some of those there. We can actually, if we want, we can go to foliage itself and we can select those individually things. Can we? I thought we could. So I guess we're just gonna have to increase the size of this. It's really weird that it's showing up outside of the volume. And just resimulate again. There you go. Press G. So I'm happy with this. Okay. We're gonna ignore the water. It's not fully on the edge there, but that's okay. The river starts, and there's enough space between the edge for the tree to start showing up. There's a little bit ones here that are a little bit too close, so I can just pick this object here, resimulate. There you go. And then the end, of course, it's not really aligning with the river. Simulate. Done. But few issues. It's for most people, I think they would like, I like the way that this looks, but I wanted to add a little bit more detail to this river. Okay, and I don't like that inside the river you can see this foliage. I would like to either have different assets inside the river or have a different material. But let's address first the shape of the river. Remember when we were creating this interesting mountains? We were playing with a section that's called effects. Luckily for us, yeah, everything is a little bit like similar. So if I select my river here, you're gonna notice there's gonna be a tab here for you, also called effects inside terrain. So it's the same thing that we did for this, we can do here. So let's start with the same process, right? Remember that I was starting everything with curling, right? So I want the curling noise that has the lowest styling actually. And just like that, you can see that my river now has a different design. And I can continue to push this further. Be mindful that if you do a lot of changes, it might break some of it. But if you play with just enough of the low values, you can actually get the river to have a way more organic shape to it, which I quite love it. It looks interesting now. And it's still deforming inside my parameters, so the trees are not being born inside of it, which is pretty cool. So what else we can do here? Well, if we select the water brush, the water body river, remember we can play with our smooth blending, so I can smooth in and out. So I'm gonna smooth out a little bit. And that number is gonna have to be big for you to see something. So you can see it's like right now it's cutting on a very sharp angle, and if I wanted to smooth a little bit, I can. It should be good enough. So it's like a interesting slope. But I can always slope in and change the smoothing inside the river too. I'm gonna push 500, 500. Very interesting. Some of this surface we can always sculpt on top, or we can put geometry to kind of mask it. But overall, just out of the batch, right, you have like an interesting design there. So if you select the river again, we plate with displacement. I don't think it's gonna be interesting here, but we can definitely do the smoothing here to like 5 or something. Let's see what happens if I do 10. I like 5. Let's try a little bit of the. Should we get displacement going? I don't know if it's gonna add much to what we have here, but why not? Yeah, it's not really gonna do much for us. What I wanted was just like get that curve and deform it. I think it looks pretty decent. It looks very organic, really fast. And that's the cool thing about these tools is that you can get something that looks interesting really quick, and then it's just a matter of just styling or sculpting on top. I keep saying sculpting on top. What I mean by this is, if I select my landscape and go to my landscape mode, you're gonna notice that there is a layer called water. And if I sculpt stuff underneath it, you're not gonna see anything because that layer is overriding everything. Okay? But what I can do is just go here, create a new layer. Well, it's not gonna let me. Oh shoot. I got to my limit. And I can start sculpting. Oh, I'm smoothing instead of sculpting. I can start sculpting on top of it and start creating some interesting shapes, almost like tiny islands in between the river. I can go and give some light taps. And if I'm happy with this, I can just go hydro damage in that or smoothing down. Actually, I like that it has a little bit of the rock in there. But yeah, you can just go around and add details to it. So right here, for example, I think what we needed was something that wasn't so strong. And then smoothing out. So yeah, you can sculpt those details and add variation to it. So now we can make a bridge that goes from here to here, etc. So the next one, that's pretty much it, guys. So honestly, it's like if you want to add more stuff, you can just go here and say water. There is a lake that you can add. And you can have the lake intersecting with the geometry a little bit. Sometimes it glitches a little and the lake disappears, but let's try. Maybe there's a lake around here. Yeah, it's not really looking decent. What I'm trying to do is align the height so you don't see this like the water's going up a little bit. There you go. And by the way, it's the same thing. If I go to my lake here, Waterbag Lake, if I go to my effects, I can increase the curling. And it's going to deform the shape of that lake. I'm not a fan of the lake though, so just delete it. So you can customize that way. You can also add oceans. It's going to make this entire thing into an island. And it's require a little bit more planning. If the goal is to make this into an island, I think you should just start with the ocean, then you build the landscape on top. Before we have here, I think it looks pretty decent. So I'm going to save it. And in the next class, we're going to paint a mask. So we don't have the grass underneath it, but we have some sort of sand texture. Maybe this doesn't bother you. You like it's interesting that it has stuff underneath it and you like it. But for me, it bothers a little bit. It might not even make much difference because you can barely see it. The camera doesn't go underwater. But I'm gonna show to you, and you can use the technique to also build paint roads and paint other materials whenever you want. So let's do this next. It's gonna be cool. See you in the next class.